Backyard Devotional.
Back in the 1940s, Dorothy Sayers wrote an essay. The essay focused on the topic of law. And at one point in the essay, Sayers draws a distinction between the law of the stop sign and the law of fire. Sayers notes that the law of the stop sign says that if there's a lot of traffic going through a certain part of town, and if the city council meets and decides to put up a stop sign, and if that stop sign in fact goes up, as citizens of that municipality, we are under obligation to obey that sign regardless of what time it may be, whether it's late at night, even if no one else is around. Of course, after some time, a highway may be built around the city which would change the traffic patterns and substantially reduce the number of cars on that particular street. And as a result, that same city council might vote to take down that stop sign that was formerly up there. The reason why is because the sign is no longer needed. That's the law of the stop sign. That's the law of the civil magistrate. But in her essay, Sayers notes that there's also what she calls the law of fire. The law of fire says that if you put your hand in a flame, it will burn. Now imagine all the governing leaders of all the nations of all the world gathered together in one great conclave, and what do? They vote unanimously that from this point on, fire will no longer burn. Sayers wrote that the first delegate who would leave that assembly and put his or her hand in fire would quickly learn that the law of the stop sign and the law of fire are very different one from the other. The reason why is because there is something intrinsic about the law of fire. The law is found in the nature of fire itself. So why is that important? Well, we've been looking at, over the past few Sundays, this whole issue of the law, and particularly the law as it relates to the Sermon on the Mount. And we noted that these laws that first appeared upon tablets of stone are more than simply good rules to live by. Instead, they show us something of the nature of God. In them we see not simply what we must do, but in them we see something about what God is like. The fancy Latin phrase for all of this is sibi ipsi lex. Loosely translated, sibi ipsi lex means from his own self, the law. The idea communicated in this phrase is that God's laws are not merely busy work for us, but instead they're reflections of his character, they're reflections of his justice. Furthermore, they're reflections of what we are to be in and of ourselves. For example, when the Bible tells us that we are to forgive and we do not do that, then what are we doing? We're violating our very design. We're violating how we're wired and how we, by the grace of God, are to function best. When we're full of pride or lust or anger, when we allow things like jealousy to overtake us, when we insist on getting our own way, when we fail to love even those who are different from us, what are we doing? We're violating, again, how we're wired. We're violating how we, by the grace of God, function best. So it's for this reason the psalmist can speak of God's law not simply as a set of rules, but instead as something that is precious and something that is valued and something that is wise. Amen.